Zimbabwean award-winning journalist Hopewell Chinono is still fighting for justice. He says Chinono was first arrested in July, accused of inciting violence. He says he was jailed for exposing corruption during the COVID-19 pandemic. After being denied bail several times, he was finally released in September. Let's update now with Hopewell Chinono joining us. Thank you so much, Mr. Chinono. Let's start with the latest developments. You want the magistrate hearing your case to accuse himself because you're suing him. Why are you suing him?
Good evening, and thank you for having me on your program. My lawyer, Beatrice Mtetwa, and myself were suing the magistrate because of the misdirections that were not only noted by us, but by the High Court. So, for instance, my lawyer was removed from my case from representing me because of a Facebook post that was posted on a Facebook fan page for Beatrice Mtetwa in Chicago. And yet the magistrate said Beatrice Mtetwa was responsible for that post, and yet she knows nothing about that Facebook account, and she's not even on Facebook. Secondly, the magistrate, when he denied me bail the second time, in his ruling, he said that I had not provided oral evidence. And yet, as the judge at the High Court noted, I provided 40 pages with oral evidence. So you lose confidence in a justice system where the magistrate will actually whitewash what you have said and say that you have not said anything, and yet you have said this. Yeah. Thirdly, there was an issue where the magistrate was now making up things and putting them in his rulings, things which were not mentioned in court, which were not on the record. And the removal of Mrs. Mtetwa as my lawyer was the final straw. Yeah. So as is provided for in our constitution, we then requested that he recuses himself on that basis because we are now suing him legally. We've filed papers and he has not responded, which means that he's not denying what we are saying.
Yeah. Explain exactly where the legal process is. So you've now brought this application for him to accuse himself. Once that is finished, would this be the magistrate trying you for incitement to violence? That was the charge. And what evidence have you been shown that you've been inciting people in Zimbabwe to violence?
They haven't shown us any evidence as yet. I don't know what evidence they are going to show us. When I was arrested on the 20th of July in a spectacular raid where my house was broken into through a glass that was broken by an AK-47, in court they brought 4 tweets, and none of these tweets said anything about violence. It was all conjecture, where I was saying that we cannot trust elections anymore, and we can't trust the judiciary because it's captured. So they said the assumption is that you're now saying if you can't trust elections or the judiciary, you are now inciting violence, which is absolutely ridiculous. The investigation officer was asked whilst he was in court by my lawyers whether any of those tweets contravened any laws, and he said no, they didn't. To a point where the prosecutor started asking him whether he still maintained that I shouldn't get bail. But because these people work under instructions from political office, they will simply go ahead with things that they know are wrong. Yeah. We now know, we have evidence, documentary evidence, that my arrest was engineered from President Mnangagwa's office. His nephew runs an illegal unit called the Special Anti-Corruption Unit. And these are the guys that were responsible for our arrest. We are now being tried in a corruption court, and yet our case is a criminal case of incitement to cause violence, and yet we are being tried in a corrupt court, yeah. A corruption court, which is controlled by the special unit in President Mnangagwa's office. So the whole thing, as I had said from the onset when I was arrested, was based on the fact that I had exposed corruption, and it touched very important people, including the president's family, and people were not happy. ZANU-PF spokesperson Patrick Chinamasa had held a press conference a week or 2 before I was arrested, accusing me of being unscrupulous because he said that I was attacking the image of the first family, meaning Emerson Mnangagwa's family, in that I was tarnishing the name of the president.
Yeah. This is incredible. I mean, in a democracy, you're allowed to criticize the authorities. Peaceful demonstrations are allowed. You're saying, we spoke about those tweets earlier on the show. We've been following the case. That's all they have on you, a few tweets. It's just incredible. Hopewell, what do you face if you are convicted? Are you scared?
I'm not scared at all. I've never been scared because I knew that what I was doing was right. Our fight is about justice. Our fight is about ending corruption. And the president, when he removed Robert Mugabe in a coup, he came in on a card of cleaning up the mess that had been with us for over 2 decades. And I was one of those people that was optimistic that something could be done, because I never thought that somebody would be worse than Robert Mugabe. And today, we are being thrown into prison. We can live with it. I've made peace with it. Nelson Mandela was in prison for 28 years. Even Robert Mugabe was in prison for 12 years. If you're fighting for something that is just to end corruption, you should not be afraid of anything. And in my case, we are fighting because mothers are dying giving birth. The biggest hospital has got only 2 maternity theaters. They were built in 1977, and only one of them is working. This hospital takes in 1,500 pregnant women every month. And because of that, pregnant women are dying. And the number of women that are dying giving birth in Zimbabwe is 2,500 every year. That's 15 jumbo jets crashing every year and killing pregnant women. It's unacceptable. So if I'm going to be thrown into prison for fighting for the rights of my citizens, so be it.
Sure. There has been a global outpouring, journalists around the world concerned about your situation. Has that been heartening? But do you think it can protect you at all?
I think the support that we got was amazing, especially from the South African media, which covered this story in a very professional way. You gave us voice, and I would like to thank SABC, your foreign news editor, Sophie Mokeni, who's being insulted daily by ZANU-PF officials, including the presidential spokesperson, George Charamba. So that gave us a sign of hope that we might be released. And indeed, our release from prison was directly linked to the support that we got, not only from Zimbabweans, but from South Africans. And the Zimbabwean Lives Matter hashtag, which was trending, started in South Africa, and it went global. So because of that, yes, we were hopeful, and we remain hopeful. Do we think that that support will stop this regime from throwing us into prison? No. Every time when you think that ZANU-PF can't do something, they will go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
They have injured their reputation globally. They've destroyed the goodwill that came with the removal of Robert Mugabe, and they just don't care. We don't have hospital care right now in public hospitals, and the majority of our people use these public hospitals. And if they were caring, if they really cared about the citizen, they would fix things, but they are not. They are more interested in handing down critics and political adversaries and rivals and throwing them into prison.
All right. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for mentioning our coverage. I'm sure that I can commit on behalf of the SABC that we will follow what's happening in your country and your case until the very end. Thank you very much. Zimbabwean journalist Hopewell Chinono, who spent 45 days in prison already in Harare on this claim of incitement. He was denied bail. He has spoken out about prison conditions as well, and they're talking about hospitals, saying this is all indicative of the malaise of the decline in Zimbabwe itself, and he's been very critical of the president.